Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, She Thought She Could Get Away with a Bad Back. Backstory. In the early 2000s I worked for overpriced CD store. I really liked my job aside from one coworker, Karen. We just didn't get along. I made the best of it, but she was a borderline bully. Of course, she gets promoted to key holder and proceeds to turn into a full-blown power trip bully. She made my life hell, and a job that I previously loved I couldn't stand anymore. I made a formal complaint that made its the way to HR, but I was done working there, which was her goal. Of course, when HR investigated my claims, they found she and the assistant manager were dating, oops, and she was moved to another store since fraternizing was against policy. Apparently she didn't like that store and quit. A few months later I was happily working at defunct bookstore, and who gets a job at the defunct bookstore at another mall? Karen. Over the next few months, she proceeds to do little things to annoy me, like hanging up when I would call their store for a customer, or leave me on hold forever. Of course, I would get in trouble for not effectively handling the customer with their needs. The revenge. About 6 months into the job, I heard through the grapevine of store gossip that Karen had been injured in a car accident. Apparently she had hurt her back and went on medical leave. She couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes at a time without excruciating pain. This is important. She was on indefinite leave, and her store could not hire anyone to replace her while on medical leave, leaving them short-handed. And I knew her manager was really annoyed after a few months. 2 months later a few friends of mine and I decided to go play pool. A former coworker, Rick, from the overpriced CD store was there. Rick. Man, too bad you weren't here last night. It would have been a reunion. Karen and assistant manager were here playing pool. Me. Karen was playing pool? Rick. Oh yeah. They come in every Wednesday night. Me. Really? That's interesting. Every Wednesday, huh? How long has this been going on? Rick. A few months now. Yes, for the entire time she was on medical leave, Karen was out playing pool once a week, not at home in debilitating pain like she claimed. The next day I went to her defunct bookstore and asked to speak to the manager. I told him all about her weekly pool sessions and encouraged him to be at the pool hall the next Wednesday night to catch her in action. That Thursday she was fired. The last time I saw her she and her friend were attempting to follow me home from work. I called the police and led them into the police station where they told her to leave me alone or be arrested. She stayed away from me after that. Next one is titled, Tales of Delicious Revenge from a Recovering Retail Worker. I discovered this sub a while ago and it has breathed new life into my withered soul. Today, it's time that I return the favor. These tales of petty revenge all took place over the 3 long years that I had the misfortune of working retail at a big box store best known for its red bullseye logo and bitchy middle-class clientele. Enjoy. 1. The Tag Switcher. I was working in the fitting room one night when this lady bustles in with 3,000 different items of clothing that she wanted to try on. Unfortunately my store had just lifted the item limit for the fitting room, so I begrudgingly had to let her take everything back. She proceeds to make a huge mess in the fitting room, leaving clothes inside out all over the floor, tags ripped off of items, size stickers peeled off and slapped onto the wall, the whole 9 yards. After she leaves, I report the ripped off tags to Assets Protection, per fitting room policy, and, figuring that would be the extent of my revenge, I resigned to cleaning up the mess she left me. Then I get a call from the manager. He wants me up at the registers to do backup. I had worked the registers before, but it was exceptionally rare for me to get pulled away from the fitting room to do backup. Still, I don't protest and I head up to the register. Guess who my first customer is? Yep, the mess-making witch from the fitting room. The manager has directed her straight to me, and I can tell from the wide-eyed look of horror on her face that she realizes she has just been led into a trap. She slowly begins to plop her items onto the conveyor belt and tries to make nervous small talk. At first I assume she's just feeling awkward about the mess that she left, but when I get a better look at her items, I immediately realize there's something much fishier going on. Her purchase consists entirely of women's clothing, and I recognize most of the items as brand new stuff that has recently come in. Stuff that should cost full price. So when I see nearly every single item's price tag covered with a bright red 70% off clearance sticker, I realize that something's up. When I look down at the first item from her pile, my suspicions are confirmed. The item I'm holding in my hands is a woman's Massimo black clothing item, but it has a bright blue Cerso tag that belongs on infant boy clothes. Busted. This witch was switching tags on clothes to get a lower price. Not only that, but she was so brazen, or stupid, that she used tags from the wrong department. I don't make it immediately obvious that I've figured out her scheme. Instead, I think fast. From my experience in the fitting room, I know every item of clothing has a little white tag on the inside that has a 9-digit item code. So instead of scanning the items, I proceed to type in each and every item manually, using the actual numbers inside each garment. The woman watches this all unfold with a nauseous look on her face, as item after item rings up at full price, $19 to $29, compared to the $2 or $4 price tags she had stuck on each item. As her total grows, so does the look of combined hatred and fear on her face. Finally she stammers something about coming back later, and runs off towards the exit. The assets protection guy watches her walk out, and then comes over to me. He reveals that he had been watching this chick before she even went into the fitting room, but he didn't have enough on camera to approach her. Since I was the only team member working that night who was familiar with the clothing tags, the manager put me on the register to check her out, literally. 2. The phone shopper. It's the week before Christmas and the store is frantic. I'm manning the phones, which are ringing off the hook, and one night I get a call from Witch Princess, who wants to know if we have any insert name of whatever animatronic hatching robot dog toy every kid had to have that year. Now the store's holiday policy said we could confirm availability over the phone, but we weren't supposed to put high demand items, like the barking bird robot thing, on hold for a customer. Regardless, I was still unjaded enough to like hooking people up. I'm still waiting on that lifetime of good retail karma to kick in. I let Witch Princess know that this highly coveted toy has been flying off the shelves for weeks and I'm doubtful that we have any in stock, but I can happily check for her if she's willing to go on a brief hold. She impatiently agrees to the hold, and I set the phone down. After being slightly delayed by a customer that ambushed me on the sales floor, I miraculously find one of these stupid toys on the shelf. I grab it and head back to my post, excited to tell Witch Princess I just saved Christmas, but when I get back I find the phone ringing again. Recognizing the number on the caller ID display, I quickly deduce that Witch Princess has hung up and is now calling back. I barely get a chance to recite my scripted greeting before Witch Princess cuts me off, yelling that I put her on hold for 30 minutes, more like 7, that she's a customer and it's my job to assist her, some nonsense about her having priority over the customers in the store, blah blah blah. I want to point out that literally none of what she's saying is true, but I keep my lips sealed. Instead, in a ridiculously pleasant voice, I say, "Ma'am, thank you so much for your patience. I checked the sales floor and couldn't find stupid toy. But the computer is telling me that we might have one in the back room. If you bear with me for another minute here, I can." She grumbled that yes, I could check the back room, but I better hurry, because she doesn't have time for this. Smiling gleefully, I put the phone back on hold and proceed to return stupid toy to the spot where I found it on the sales floor. I then spend a nice chunk of time helping out actual customers in the store. Eventually I remember that Witch Princess is still waiting on hold and I return to the phone. "Ma'am, good news, we do have one in stock," I say. Witch Princess immediately barks at me to put it on hold, and a devious Grinch-like smile spreads across my face. "I'm so sorry ma'am, but we're actually unable to put high-demand items on hold at this time. All I can do is confirm that it's currently available on the sales floor. Witch princess unleashes the wrath of 1,000 fiery infernos and demands to speak to a manager. I oblige, transferring her to the closing manager, who confirmed the store policy, before promptly being hung up on. I was pretty pleased with the turn of events, but the cherry on top came a short time later when BP Witch Princess actually shows up at the store, only to discover that the toy had already been purchased by another guest. 3. The Shoe Snatcher. It was nearly closing time, and I was tasked with zoning, or straightening up, the shoe department for the night. It was nearly impossible for me to get anything done, though, because this obnoxious woman kept making me drop everything to help her shop for shoes for her toddler. The worst part was that the woman didn't put anything back where she found it. Instead, she just leaves the shoe boxes strewn throughout the aisle. What the duck? She finally leaves, and I drag myself over to the massive mess that she's left behind. As I'm returning all of the discarded shoe boxes to their rightful locations, I'm popping them open to make sure the correct shoes are inside. When I open one of the boxes, I discover a very sweet sight indeed: a dirty pair of toddler sneakers. It's a scam I've seen far too many times. Someone swaps out a pair of new shoes with their old dirty shoes. Only this time, instead of getting away, I had caught the crook red-handed, or red-footed. I tucked the shoebox under my arm and quickly retraced the woman's steps. Sure enough, I was able to find her in the grocery section. And sure enough, her toddler was sitting in the cart wearing a pair of brand new cartoon character sneakers. I approached the mom with a giant shit-eating grin on my face and said, "I'm so glad I caught you. You almost left without these." I held open the box with the dirty sneakers. The woman had the nerve to pin the blame on her child, playing it off as if her kid had swapped the sneakers. Bonus. Here's one that's short and sweet. Holiday crap always gets marked down to clearance the day after a holiday, and people tend to get a little worked up about it. One time, this guy calls the store the day after Easter and asks how much the white chocolate Cadbury mini eggs had been discounted. I told him they were marked down 30%, the standard first mark down, and he's not satisfied with that and hangs up. He proceeds to call back every damn day to ask for the price, and every time he's rude and weird about it. When they finally get marked down to 50%, I think he'll bite, but nope. Still not cheap enough. Finally at 90% he's interested and asks me, over the phone, to take every single bag off the sales floor and put them on hold for him. I tell him no, goes against store policy to hold clearance. But since the candy is about to be defected, taken out of inventory, the manager tells me to just do it. So I wheel a cart over to the clearance aisle, and that's when I hatch a plan. There are two kinds of candy left over in clearance: white chocolate Cadbury mini eggs, and white chocolate M&Ms. For whatever reason, we have about 50 bags of each. Feeling a spirit of pettiness overtake me, I fill the cart with the M&Ms and push it to the front with a 24-hour hold ticket. I wasn't there when the guy showed up the next morning, but I'd imagine he was pretty livid to discover the wrong candy on hold, and then to realize that the actual candy he wanted had been defected out. Next one is titled, Crow Revenge. One of my favorite things to do is to camp. I try to go camping at least twice a year to unwind in the quiet of nature. Usually I go to one state park or another, sometimes in other states. Sometimes I take a friend, but usually I go solo. I have a nice tent, an inflatable mattress, pillows and everything I need to be comfortable. One day I decided to try out a state park in Washington. The campground had only a couple of other tents set up, so I expected to have a relaxing visit. I went to the very last campsite and got everything set up and spent the afternoon reading and hiking. I cooked a steak on my grill and had a couple of whiskeys before bedtime. I was sleeping soundly until around 5 in the morning when the sun was just beginning to come up. I was awakened by the awful racket of screaming crows. I went outside and saw that I had accidentally left a couple of slices of bread on the picnic table and the birds were attacking it, fighting over the crumbs and raising hell. I chased them away and swept up the rest of the bread. By now I was too awake to go back to bed. I was pretty grumpy all day, but I knew that I had a good night's sleep still ahead. That night I made sure that everything was put away and went to bed early, but at 1 o'clock in the morning some new campers arrived. They had 3 tents, lots of children and adults, and they turned their car headlights on the campsite so they could get set up. Meanwhile they talked and laughed and carried on as if they were all alone in the world. I couldn't believe it. Their lights were shining into my tent, and even though I put my pillow over my head I couldn't drown out the noise. I'm not a confrontational sort of guy, so I hoped I could wait them out, thinking that they were bound to go to sleep soon. They kept it up until past 3, and I was finally able to get back to sleep. I was angry, and when I got up at 7 that morning I didn't bother cooking breakfast. I just threw all of my stuff in the car, packed up my tent and drove away. But the last thing I did was to pull up alongside their tents and throw out a whole loaf of bread. I threw those slices like little white frisbees all over the place. As I went on I could see in my mirror the flock descending. Last one is titled, Petty Revenge Bod. Went from size 18 jeans to size 14 jeans to fit into a Christmas gift. My sister-in-law does the Christmas shopping for my grandma-in-law, no big deal. She always references this list from 5 years ago when I was a size 16. Few years and a kid later, I became a size 18. I was gifted a size 14 pair of jeans, a little stretchy but still way too small. This is the first time any gifts were that small, so it seemed intentional. We had a miscommunication the week before Christmas. We have since apologized and hugged it out. I was going to give them away, but then I used it as motivation. After lots of walking and salads, I am proud to say I fit into those jeans today. I plan on wearing them next time I see her and mention I love my gift. I don't have scales, so this was a nice way to measure my weight loss and feel good about myself. Thanks for listening.